Greetings metalheads and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George and today I have another special instalment of bands you need to hear for you. This is of course following along in the little mini series I'm doing in the run up, the countdown if you like, to Incineration Festival in Camden, London, UK in May of this year in fact. This particular band, featuring on that rather stellar lineup so far, is without a doubt one of the best, the highlights, if you like, for me. But also they are just an absolutely astoundingly good band. One of my all-time favourite death metal bands, probably one of my all-time favourite bands, to be honest. They have not that many albums in their catalogue, considering how long they have been around now, and also their history has been fraught with lineup changes and breaking up and getting back together again, all of that sort of business. But regardless of all of that, the mighty Asphyx are here, gonna be here for Incineration Fest, and they are just an absolutely masterful band. If you're not familiar with Asphyx, from Holland, they are an old school death metal band, very heavy band indeed, leaning much more towards the sort of death doom style, certainly more in recent years anyway, but they just deliver the goods time and time again. Now, they are responsible for two of the subgenre's most classic albums from, I believe, 1990 and 1991 respectively. We are talking about the debut album, The Rack, and the second album, Last One on Earth. In fact, I believe it's 1991 and 1992. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm going with. So these are two of the most superb old school death metal albums. I absolutely love these albums. These were the first two albums that I heard of the band. Of course, many years later on these lovely Century Media reissues, but they are just full of bruising old school death metal tracks. I love these particular reissues where you've got the little posters, you've got the nice inserts and all that. It's really cool. So, talking about The Rack a little bit, this is just crammed full of classic material with the likes of Vermin, Evocation, Wasteland of Terror, Pages in Blood, the title track, The Rack, which is a 9-minute long epic of just atmospheric, ambient, dark death metal. Absolutely love it. If you love gritty, raw, old school death, that's an album for you. Martin Van Drunen on vocals delivers such a harrowing, terrifying vocal performance. It sounds fantastic. The follow-up album to that, as I've mentioned there, the mighty Last One on Earth, is probably my favourite out of these two classic albums. But that's very close indeed. But you have such absolute classics on this album. You've got MS Bismarck, which is, of course, it's about the Bismarck, the mighty Bismarck, but, you know, in today's day and age, people would probably be a little bit more cautious or a little bit more afraid to talk about an enormous Kriegsmarine battleship. But actually, to be honest, it's just a fantastic track. Don't read into it too much. Then you've got the mighty The Crusher. You've got the title track, Last One on Earth, which has that death doom leaning. But for the majority, I would consider these first two albums to be old school death metal albums. Then you have Streams of Ancient Wisdom, short and sharp there. Asphyx, Forgotten War, an absolute masterpiece, closes out that album. On this particular version, you've also got the inclusion of the Crush the Cenotaph EP and a few other sort of demo bits and pieces. But these two albums, The Rack and Last One on Earth, absolutely essential old school death metal albums for any self-respecting fan. If you like Obituary, if you like Deicide, if you like Dismember or Entomb, then these albums you seriously need to check out, because they are beer chugging, head banging, fist pounding, old school death metal albums. Then we have a bit of a interesting period, because after the release of The Last One on Earth, we have Martin Van Drunen, the legendary. He departs with the band. Then we've got a bit of a shaky, turbulent period where we did have a few albums. We had a self-titled album. We had an album called Embrace the Death, I believe. Then we had God Cries as well. We also had another album which I do have in the collection, which is entitled On the Wings of Inferno, which is the only one of those albums that I've currently heard. And weirdly enough, for a band that I absolutely love, I have not heard those albums yet, but I have just ordered a recent reissue of Embrace the Death, Asphyx, and God Cries. So soon I will be able to give a little bit of a closer inspection of that era of the band, which I am missing the knowledge of. But this album, I think when I initially heard it many years ago when I bought this Century Media reissue, I was very sceptical, because I was totally biased to the fact that I absolutely love Martin Van Drunen's vocals. I think he's such a good death metal vocalist. And I completely dismissed this album. But I did listen to this last week, and I was pleasantly surprised, actually. It's not a bad album at all. It's just nowhere near as good as the other Asphyx albums. But it's not bad at all. If you just fancy listening to something a bit different, On Wings of Inferno, you've got some good tracks there. You've got some good vocal work. You've got some great crunchy riffs here and there. But it's not top level Asphyx. It's like 60% Asphyx compared to Last One on Earth or what comes next. So for me, what does come next, when the band gets back together again after yet another breakup, and they also have Martin Van Drunen back in the fold. I believe initially the whole idea was that they weren't going to do another album. They were just going to do show, maybe a festival show or a couple of festival shows. I think Partisan Festival came up in that bio that I read the other day that I've already forgot about. But this album did come out of that reunion, and this is Death the Brutal Way. And this is from 2009. And honestly, this album is so freaking good. This is a slipcase edition, so that's not quite the true artwork there. There you go. That's the real deal. But honestly, this album is so freaking good. This is firmly, by this stage, many years after, nearly getting on towards 2 decades, bear in mind, after those first 2 classic albums, you've now got Asphyx firmly in the death doom camp, without a doubt. You have some absolutely blisteringly grim and nasty material here, with the likes of Scorbutics, which opens up the album, The Herald, Blood Swamp. And to be honest, I could just read out every track title on this album and say that it's a freaking masterpiece. But certain ones do stand out, such as Asphyx 2, They Died as They Marched, and Cape Horn, which are, without a doubt, death, doom masterpieces. Very doomy, very dark, very heavy. The riffs are amazing. Martin's vocals are harrowing. The Saw, the Torture and the Pain is an instrumental outro piece. But in the middle, we've got Eisenbahn Morsa, about the giant, enormous rail guns that the Nazis constructed. We've also got Death the Brutal Way, Black Hole Storm. Black Hole Storm is quite a death doom track as well. But honestly, it's just a freaking masterpiece. I absolutely love it. Not a bad track on the album. It's one of those albums where you put it on and it feels like over in 5 minutes, because you're just intoxicated by that death doom majesty. So, We've had 3 absolutely terrific original pieces there with Van Drunen era, if you like. But things only get better. And I would honestly say that Death the Brutal Way is, if it's not my favourite Asphyx album, it's certainly one of my favourite. But the follow-up album to that was The Mighty Death Hammer. Remind myself of the year, this is 2012. Now this album, this is a freaking masterpiece. Things change a little bit here because we have a couple of tracks such as Into the Time Wastes, and we also have As the Magma Mammoth Rises. We have We Doom You to Death, and of course the title track Death Hammer, where the nature of the songs, or the lyrical themes if you like, isn't just about war and destruction and death and pestilence and plague. It's actually about Into the Time Waste, for example, about some sort of space travelling destruction or race of some sort of creature wanting to destroy. And then you've got We Doom You to Death, which is an ode to all of the other bands who suck in their opinion, because actually Death, Doom and just Asphyx is the way to go. As the Magma Mammoth Rises is an epic death metal track. Absolutely love it. It's full of atmosphere. It's freaking heavy. It's brilliant. Elsewhere, Death Hammer, that title track, as I mentioned, is short, sharp, heavy, fast. It's absolutely fantastic. It's just a fantastic track. Minefield, that delivers the slow, sludgy death doom, as does Der Lanza, another brilliant one. Reign of the Brute, another brilliant track. Honestly, this is a fantastic album. Not a bad track on it. Death Hammer, crushingly heavy, smacks you like a hammer with death doom brilliance. And from there, things just continue in that awesome vein. We then had the follow-up to that was Incoming Death, which was 2016, which again, it had the mixture of different lyrical themes with Kandiru and It Came From the Skies, or War Droid, about more sci-fi topics. Then we had Division Brandenburg, we had The Grand Denial, and we had Forerunners of the Apocalypse, being about the Mongols. Then we've got The Feeder, which is a completely different track indeed for them. It's about literally a feeder, someone being fed up to the point of bursting, which is incredibly metal. It's just brilliant. So many great riffs. The lineup at this point has been consistent for a few years, from Incoming Death through to the follow-up, and still current, with Martin Van Drunen on vocals. We've got Alwyn Zure on bass. We've got Paul Barvans on guitars, and then we have Stefan Huskins on drums. So that's the current lineup. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Brilliant musicians. They just deliver the goods time and time again. The newest album, Necroceros, which I've got in this lovely digibook form here with a DVD which contains their 30 Years of Death Doom Domination DVD. This, weirdly enough, I didn't listen to this album a huge amount when it came out, which came out in 2021. For some unknown reason, I have heard it in the meantime, but I didn't really delve into it too much. I was probably listening to other things, and life events take over, and this, that, and the other. Excuses. But in the last week, I've listened to this album about 10 times, and I freaking love it. It's an absolute masterpiece, crammed full of great material, such as The Soul Cures Death, Molten Black Earth, absolutely freaking love that. Night Templar's Stand. We've got 3 Years of Famine, which is the Death Doom epic here. Botox Implosion, which is the slightly more humorous, short, sharp shock piece. On Blazing Oceans, The Nameless Elite, Necroceros, this sprawling epic closing track, a Death Doom closing track there. It's just an absolutely sterling album, and I don't know why I didn't listen to it as much when it came out, but I have made up for it, and I'm going to continue to make up for it, because it is a masterpiece, a magnificent, majestic masterpiece. Absolutely love it. So, the point of all this, Asphyx are a band that you absolutely need to hear. If you love death metal, if you love great riffs, if you love terrifying vocals, if you love just talented musicianship, then I swear that Asphyx have something for everyone, because they are a fantastic band. Not a band to be missed, not a band to be underestimated. And if you are trekking to Incineration Fest this year, do not miss out on Asphyx, because I certainly will not be myself. One of the main highlights, in my opinion. On a lineup which is absolutely astounding already. So, if you want a few recommendations, I would say, in terms of old school material here, you want to check out, I'd probably say Evocation from The Rack. An absolute masterpiece there. You definitely want to check out MS Bismarck from Last One on Earth. Probably wouldn't recommend anything in particular from On Wings of Inferno. That's more for people who are, or fans who are more established, I'd say. If you're looking for material to get you into the band, The Herald from Death the Brutal Way. Let's have Death Hammer from Death Hammer album. Let's also have a little bit of The Grand Denial from The Mighty Incoming Death, which is a very harrowing, powerful death doom track. It's a bit different, but it's deadly, absolutely deadly. And from Necrosaurus, let's have Knights Templar Stand. Absolutely fantastic stuff. So there you have it. Can't give Asphyx enough praise, and honestly, I could sit here all freaking day just giving praise to the mighty Asphyx, but neither of us will have enough time for that. So, Asphyx, a band you need to hear. Check them out if you're not familiar with them, because they are absolutely fantastic, and go and see them live. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. I hope this has been enlightening. Feel free to like and subscribe. As always, do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations. And of course, take care, my friends. Stay heavy.